We'll start with something positive for the Panthers. Xavier Legette might be a real one. Can he play defense? the Panthers' defense is not good.
Oh, it couldn't do much worse.
Could he go full Julian Edelman? Remember Troy Brown? The Patriots used to roll wide receivers out there and slot coverage. The Panthers' defense is not good, and
it stinks.
And here's the hard part: the players, meaning just the roster, due to injury, due to the way the roster was built, due to some of the hard decisions they had to make this offseason, the players are not good enough. Not an individual thing. It's just an overall. There's not enough there. But adding to that is, I believe, how they're being deployed, how Ejiro Evero, the defensive coordinator, is refusing to take chances. It all starts with the players. All right, I don't believe the defense is good enough to match up, not in man-to-man coverage, but I'm just saying like man-to-man, the person-to-person, player-to-player. They're not good enough to match up with opposing teams' offenses. You can't run from that. You can't hide from that. So, but also that's very simple, right? It's just like, hey, not good enough. The next issue is the scheme is being played, and this is one of the more frustrating things I get from coaches, but also it's one that I understand in a world of survival and career advancement. It looks like the scheme is being played in a way that helps him explain what happened in job interviews this offseason. Right, there's that legendary scene in Moneyball, and if you listen to the show, you know I love that movie, where the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman, playing the manager, tells Brad Pitt's character, Billy Beane, listen, I'm managing this roster in a way I can explain in job interviews this winter. Which is basically saying, if you want to run this roster into some kind of crazy analytics-based, forward-thinking Moneyball roster, great, but once you fire me this offseason, once my contract is up this offseason, I'm going to have to interview for jobs with normal baseball teams, so I'm going to do my best to run this roster like a normal baseball roster. And then I can say in interviews, I was trying to do it the right way. That psycho was giving me weird players in the roster. He wanted me to run a catcher out there at first base. He wanted me to throw this weird sinker baller in every extended relief position, whatever it was. It looks like Ejiro Evero is running a defense as if he thinks he has good players and is simply going to go into interviews next. Because remember, he was getting head coaching interviews. He was getting defensive coordinator interviews. Like, as he goes into those interviews this offseason, he's going to say, listen, man, they gave me nothing. And if you can't tell, watch. Right? I rushed 4 down linemen all this time. We got no pressure. Bad rushers.
Yeah, bad players.
Oh, look, I had these linebackers that I kind of liked. They both got hurt, so I had to make do. So I simplified everything. What he should be doing, if he had 100 years of job security and he knew like the money was there and the job offers would be there no matter what, he should be taking way more chances. Way more chances. And I'm talking exotic blitzes. I'm talking send a safety and drop a defensive end. I'm talking about the unscouted looks. It's what literally every single underdog in the history of the world has had to do. Surprise them. Right? You're not going to be able to, like, if you just think you're going to walk out there as a Panthers defense right now and say, our edges will beat your tackles. Our defensive tackles will beat your interior defensive linemen. Our corners and our safeties will match up with your wide receivers one-on-one, and we're just going to play better than you. You're crazy. But what you might be able to do is confuse somebody. Mm-hmm. What you might be able to do is sneak attack. Will you get burned sometimes? Yeah. You will. But your defense isn't stopping them with the traditional way. So all it does is it might, be a faster trip to the end zone. That's the problem is you look at this defense and it looks like it's almost being called in a way to emphasize how much the Panthers are going to lose one-on-one battles. Because then there's something to point to and go, listen, I put him in good position. I had a guy there to guard him. Just he couldn't do it. What am I supposed to do with that? They couldn't run with Drake London. They couldn't tackle Tyler Algier in the open field. What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. Try to confuse Kirk. Try to get a tip pass. Try to get a strip sack. Try to do something. Sure, it'll leave you vulnerable if they diagnose it perfectly. But you're going to give up the score anyway based on what I'm watching.
Yeah, you've given up 34, 36, and 38 points the last 2 weeks. I don't know. Try something different. Take
a chance. Sure, there might be a 30% chance you get the interception or the strip sack. Might be a 70% chance you give up a big touchdown. I don't know. It's going to happen. You got to try. You got to try. And then on top of that, players like J.C. Horn didn't have their best game. And it might be not fair, but J.C. Horn is one of the few guys who I do think would start on most teams in the NFL on that defense. You're not allowed to have a bad game. You're not allowed. If you want to be on one of the best defenses in the league, yeah, then you get a bad game, but the pass rush gets to the quarterback early, right? You can get beat a few times, but the safety helps you out. Against the Panthers, J.C. Horn's not allowed to have a bad game. If you're the Panthers defense, there's like 2, 3 people not allowed. Xavier Woods, you can't have a bad game. I don't even know who else that would be. It might be just those two. You're not allowed to have a bad game. Because if you do, how can you look at J.C. Horn and say, like, all right, he gets a couple mistakes, it's fair. Oh, what about your third-string linebacker that's in the game? What about your backup defensive tackle that's in the game? If J.C. Horn gets 3 get-out-of-jail-free passes a game, does your backup defensive tackle get 12? Is there any play where no one's going to be cashing in your get-out-of-jail-free? I get a few mistakes before you get mad cards? The defense, it's not good enough. The players aren't good enough. The scheme isn't trying to make up for it enough. Imagine if, like, we see Navy and Army. They're both top 25 teams right now. Mm-hmm. They're heaviest offensive linemen. I played against Navy 3 or 4 times in college. Heaviest offensive lineman's like 265 because they have to be able to go run miles and everything in basic training.
Weight requirements and stuff and all that.
Imagine if they just went out there and called normal power running games and then turned around and said, what am I supposed to do? They're 265 and they're going up against guys that are 330. What am I supposed to do? But they don't. They go, all right, let's run all this misdirection, triple option stuff, and let's be creative in our pass game, which is minimal, but at least it's creative. So everything's a surprise. If you're overmatched, you got to be willing to take chances. And right now, it looks like the defense is not willing to do that.
This is something when Chris Lee and I for Panthers Playbook, we were at yesterday's game, and something that we tracked during the game was, all right, let's just follow how many times Evero either runs a stunt, whether like using 2 defensive linemen to like basically cross paths at some point on a pass rush, either that or blitz, like send more than 5 people.
Something that is other than
just
base.
4 guys.
Yeah,
going.
like when you're in high school and you put up the fist in, you go base, base, base. Like anything other than that.
So anything other than that, of 64 meaningful plays, I'm taking away the kneel downs. The kneel down at the very end of the first half. They should have. The very end of the first half, that kneel down, and the final 3 plays were the Kirk Cousins kneel down. Take away those 4 plays. Out of 64 meaningful plays, the Panthers did either stunt or blitz 8 times.
8 times.
8. That's 12.5%. You keep running. Oh, let's just rush 4 and we're going to cover everyone. It's not working. It's not, and it hasn't been working. This is the frustrating thing if you're a Panthers fan, being like, well, why aren't you trying something different? Because guess what? What you're doing isn't working. I understand that the players are not the ones that you expected to have, but you're still trying to do the same thing and you're not capable of doing it. Okay, try to do something else. Because guess what? Like you said, if you get beat, well, you're getting beat anyway. At least you tried something.
Kirk Cousins, 0 sacks.
He got hit like 3 times. And I
30
actually
attempts.
say that.
30. No, I'm saying 30 attempts. Like, try to confuse him.
Nothing.
A little bit, maybe.